You're listening to Revolution Radio, where it's 53 degrees, and I've got Joe Anunnaki on the phone. Hey, Joe, what would you like to hear?
We are observing your Earth.
I'm sorry, Joe, but we can't...
And we'd like to make...
sorry, Joe, but...
a contact with you.
Collision course.
It is essential for our survival to use these powerful tools in the most humane and wise way. And the only way to guarantee that is not to shuffle the responsibility off to somebody else, but to make sure that every citizen understands science and technology to some extent.
Lighten up, Francis.
Hi, everyone, right now on Studio A. Welcome to Collision Course, our second anniversary show. Welcome. Thank you for coming and listening at freedomsips.com every Sunday between 8 and 10 p.m. in New York City. This is our second anniversary show, and it is a special show. I want to take a second, though, because it is so special, I should say thank you and hello to a lot of special people that join us on Collision Course and like the things that we like when we talk about it here on Collision Course. People like Jay-Z, Jessica, Mike, a couple of Johns, and everyone in the chat room, LB, Pat Rabbit, Popsicle Toes, Tatanka, Dave, Maced139, Popsicle Toes again, and everyone who's in there, Jer Bear, thank you very much for listening. LB. Well, I want to tell you, I have someone on the line. I want to make sure he's there. Ben, are you there? Because I really want to talk to Ben. So
I am here.
Woo, Ben, I'm so sorry.
No worries.
I'm an awful producer, but we're over that. We're over that. And welcome to Collision Course. Ben from Suspicious0bservers. Everyone is here, and I'm so happy he's here because. I'll tell you why I'm so happy he's here, because he's got a lot of information to tell us that, you know what, honestly, we're just not being told in the regular all-around things that we're being told about the topic that we're going to be talking about. So getting back to it, Ben, how are you? And thank you for being here.
Very much happy to be here.
Good. Okay. Well, as soon as we get through every little hiccup that we're going to have at the beginning of the show, we're going to have a good show. Ben, I brought you onto the show today, and I want all the listeners to know. Normally what we do at the beginning of the show, a lot of things that I've been interested in, transient objects, what's going to come in as far as asteroids and everything. But this show is very special. I had one of my friends ask me about, your and my connection so many years ago, 7 years ago, 2012, 2011, when maybe we all were first starting to get our noses into this information because we needed to be here. And I said, you know what, maybe I should go out and reach out to Ben. And Ben, wouldn't it not surprise you that your information resonated with me again? It shook me to the core. When I was looking at this information again, I was telling myself, this is the information that I'm not being told. And I'll tell everybody who's listening right now, the reason why I do this is because I'm trying to find out the information that I'm not being told. And what we're talking about here is Ben has, an immense libraries and libraries and libraries of work that he's done over the last decade. But this topic that I'm talking about is what we're hearing about our climate, our planet, and what's going on, and how the story is one-sided, and how if you didn't know someone like Ben, you are missing a whole bunch of information that you need to make a reasonable, a reasonable assessment of what's going on, in our globe, climate-wise, because everybody knows that for the past news cycles, we're getting climate really fed to us on a silver platter, and we're getting just certain information. Ben, what I'm talking about is your climate forcing movie, right? He's going to be able to spread the news that we're not getting about climate change. And so it's important for us, and I'm talking about climate, and we're talking about a very serious topic right now, because the climate is affecting us in more ways than the climate is affecting us. If you pay any attention to the news and the news media, they are trying to use the Earth's climate as a way to move us one way or the other. Ben, are you there?
I am here indeed.
Okay, good. I just a little bit.
I don't know. I have no idea how long I'll be here due to the unreliability of any time I'm talking to somebody on the phone or over the internet, but I'm here for the time being.
Okay, and then that's fine, and I'll expect that. And then what will happen if I do notice that you fell away? I will just go into something else. Well, not something else, but I have some data or some information that I can go to. Basically, what we're talking about is the other side of the climate discussion. Right now, we're getting force-fed this information from the news media in an almost aggressive format, and this is my feeling. I feel like when I'm being told about my climate and my planet, it's being it's forceful. It's not an intelligent way to tell me things. It's a forceful way, like I better believe it or else. And when I reconnected with the information that you are producing recently, in the past, and continually, that information resonates with me on a whole new level, because I recognize immediately that all that information that you have available for me, I have yet to have heard, because I'm getting forced this other information. And I want to now, I spoke just a little bit, for those who are listening, we're talking about space weather and the effects of space weather and what's going on in our universe that creates scenarios that our planet here on Earth is affected. And I want to focus on Ben's climate forcing video, which I shared a link in the chat room. And I want, Ben, if you could, tell us about the video. And then that's really where I want to be.
Well, it would strain my imagination to think anybody doesn't get the general gist of what the video is about the other side of the climate story. The evidence for it, the actions that have already been taken by the officials, which will not come into effect in any practical way for the media or policy or official reports or any of our lives until 2022, when the next official full report comes out. But things are happening behind the scenes, and they spell a whole world of trouble for what has become a seemingly unstoppable force known as mainstream climate science and human-driven global warming. The best way to segue into the topic is to take a look at what was said by the Secretary General of the World Meteorological Organization just a few weeks ago. The World Meteorological Organization is one of the main branches of the United Nations. It's like the World Health Organization. And it was the World Meteorological Organization that created the IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change, the world's, quote, official group on climate change science. About. Oh, we lose connection there? Of course.
I can hear you right now. So you can
fantastic. Well, it seemed like it was an appropriate time to cut me off, but I'm going to keep going anyway. Trust me, Francis, this happens every time I'm on the call. It doesn't matter how many bars are on the cell phone or the Wi-Fi signal. But he basically likened what Greta Thunberg and what AOC, the Ms. Cortez in Washington are saying, and some of the things that you are describing, the way it's being force-fed, it's coming down to sounding like religious extremism, and at the worst, it's actually crossing a line into terrorism. And this brings up an interesting question, because we can all understand what those words mean. But what requires a bit more mental exercise is the why. Even if he thought that, believes it, why say that now when the climate is making its big charge? We had the big climate protests set up, ready to go. And the answer is because he sees the writing on the wall. Now, I didn't get to the writing on the wall until about halfway through that climate forcing movie, but I think it's important to start with it here. in that 2022 report, for the first time ever, something called solar particle forcing and cosmic rays are actually going to be part of the equation. For 40 years, since they started really including the effects of the sun on the climate, they have used nothing but total solar irradiance, which is basically what is the effect of the sun on the upper atmosphere. In terms of the ultraviolet light and the visible light that makes it down to the surface, there's genuinely no change over time whatsoever. But in terms of the upper atmosphere heating of the sun's ultraviolet rays, that does vary a little bit, and that was 40 years ago all they really knew about, and that became basically the entire solar variation that they use to model climate change, at least in terms of what the sun is responsible for. Well, over the last 40 years, our understanding of something called the solar wind has gotten much more impressive. Same with solar flares, massive plasma explosions, and galactic cosmic rays and extragalactic cosmic rays from supernova and cosmic jets in deep space, just accelerating those particles, and they happen to hit Earth. And here's a way to think about this. If you can all picture what a nuclear bomb is, tiny, tiny little bit of physical mass, physical matter, tons and tons and tons of wave energy and heat. And so basically what this tells you when you think about what it takes to create a nuclear bomb or an atomic bomb is that when you're comparing actual physical matter and mass to energy, there's no comparison. Mass wins every time. It's got tons and tons of energy locked up inside of it. How much? A nuclear bomb tells you how much energy is locked up inside that tiny, tiny little bit of matter. Now, realize that for the last 40 years, they have gone on just a tiny fraction of that wave energy and completely ignored all of the particles. Yes, those same particles which have all that energy inside of them have been ignored. All of the actual forcing that the sun affects on the Earth, the actual influence over the temperatures and the clouds and the sea surface temperature and the polar vortex and the jet stream, all of this is missed in modern models. And it will not be really until 2022 or afterwards, and that's presuming they get it all right the first time, that we really begin to get the full picture. But here, standing here today, we're just 3 or 4 days past a very major IPCC release about the oceans. The oceans are rising very heavily. What a lot of people don't realize is this is using the data from the last full report and the models from the previous full report years ago, even though the report just came out a couple of days ago. And that report that'll come out in 2022, for 6-8 years, it will be used. Okay, so even in our dizziest daydreams, we could not imagine how much we are missing. And even though it's been 2 years now since the IPCC and at the UN made the decision to let this in, it's not part of any of their official reports. When you heard that report come out a couple of days ago about the oceans and how terrifying this is, et cetera, none of the new stuff is even allowed to be considered in there. It's how these working groups work there. And
Can
as
I
a
ask
matter,
a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna pull a segment that was interesting to me, that I found very interesting, and it relates to everything, because what I want people to do is to get a grasp of how this is really working, is that there is an environment that the Earth resides in. The environment is our solar system. Our neighbors include the sun and the other planets, all right? The sun itself is creating the most I don't want to call it interference, but the most active and energetic interactions with the planet Earth, because it is the most energetic object in our solar system that affects us. And so, what I was learning from your information was is that we're moving into a certain pattern of solar minimum right now, right? From many years of a solar maximum status. And when you reported to me that when the sun is actually in solar minimum, it's actually creating a worse environment for Earth than when the sun is actually in solar maximum. So, I mean, besides not getting the whole story, people might even be unable to understand the fact when they look up at the sun and they hear about sunspots and all that, well, that's doing the Earth and its environment more damage than when the sun is calm like it is right now. We are actually in a period right now where it's calm, and our Earth is actually being more affected by that calmness, correct?
Yes. The sun has a number of different cycles, and on maybe over a decade, any given decade, sure, the most important events will be when the sun is active, when there's a major solar flare, when the northern lights, the auroras, are seen at incredibly low latitude, and there's GPS disruptions and electrical disruptions and things of that nature. But when you start to look over longer time scales, it is that higher activity that lets the Earth enjoy a temperate, warm climate, a non-chaotic climate as well, because that high solar activity tightens up and flattens the polar vortex and the jet streams. Lots of good papers on that in major journals. And so these are the kinds of things that are going to be coming into the fray here over the next couple of years. And I definitely don't want to get too far away from this before I quickly mention a last point on what the IPCC has done. And so I mentioned that it has been 2 years since they made the decision to let this in. They immediately came out with an initial data set that climate scientists could use if they wanted to. The vast majority have opted not to use it, at least not until they have to in 2022. But there have been a number who have attempted to use it. Now, because it is a brand new thing, a lot of the results are all over the place, but one thing that has been glaringly obvious, this data set has been available for 2 years, and not one study has shown any human influence over the climate when using the solar particles and the cosmic rays. Yeah, okay, there's still tons of studies coming out on that side. They're not using the most updated data. Of the people publishing in this realm, and of the people who are actually using what the UN has and other scientists have made available, even if not required just yet, none of them have been able to show human forcing. It's been 2 years. This scientific field has been pumping out something like 10 to 100 papers a week since climate change really got going more than 2 decades ago in terms of a science and a cultural phenomenon and a money-making phenomenon, a grant-baiting phenomenon. And it's been 2 years and nobody can show it. This is as telling as anything else, because it's not as though nobody tried. And what we don't know is how many tried and then just moved that Word document in the trash. Never decided to even try to publish a paper. They looked, they tried, they were going to try to debunk it or something, they got discouraged. And rather than actually publish something like that, they just trashed it and went back to what they were, quote, supposed to be doing.
It sounds like most other organizations, when they're dealing with events that are very important to humanity, because they do the same thing when, as far as dealing with asteroids, they didn't put asteroids as a major threat in the whole agenda of space threats because it didn't get there in time. It wasn't important at the time, so they didn't even look at it. But when you look at the real threats of outer space, the space weather, the sun, and asteroids are posed to me the biggest threats that are going to affect us now and in the future, for sure. So all I'm saying is, like, these organizations just don't have it the right way. A question came to my head, and How are you interacting with those folks who are making decisions? Are you able to interact with those people? Is there forward progress in getting these people to look at this data and report on it honestly and correctly? Because that's all we really want, right? We just want the truth.
I really don't know. I have no contact with the people at the UN or anything like that.
Yeah.
There are over 100 emails on the web. Yep, I'm back.
You're on.
All right. So I was just saying, there's over 100 government scientists, NASA scientists, professors, things like that on my listserv on my website. They are interested, but mostly quiet. They have things at risk. A lot of them aren't exactly plugged in at the top level of the IPCC reports and things like that. A lot of it is a wait and see game. But, there's so much of that can happen.
As we look at this, as we look at this climate forcing, I guess when you said, and I've always believed this too, it's not about global warming, it's about global cooling. Because if and when you get the planet to a certain point of global warming, the environment will turn Earth into a reflecting machine, and it's going to reflect light away, and will eventually become cold. Is that correct way to think about it?
That's definitely one of the main things that happens. Basically, there is no way for Earth to maintain this temperate climate. The Earth's default mode right now is glaciation. For at least the last 500,000 years, probably more, Earth has spent 80 to 90% of the time in ice ages. We come out of ice ages for 10,000 years, 15,000 years here and there, and then we drop back down into the ice age. And it's the kind of thing where it takes an incredible set of circumstances to bring us up out of this to bring us up out of a glacial period and into the warmer periods known as interglacials. And it actually looked like we should have been heading back down into an ice age somewhere, starting that trend about 400 years ago.
But something must have happened.
Well, what happened was we got...
That's fine. We lost connection again with Ben. And it's all right because we'll just keep on talking. The climate forcing of the day is for our show, Collision Course, to bring you the truth about what's going on in the space outside our atmosphere, and then eventually the space that is our atmosphere. And that's why we had Ben on today. There's no problem one way or the other. He's already told us a lot about things that we haven't heard. And it really it's upsetting to me to think that we're not getting the whole story from, and the story that we're getting is so, like I said, forced. When they say climate forcing, they are forcing the issue. And it's just, it's unnecessary. If they really wanted to have an honest discussion, a truthful discussion about what's going on here as far as our global climate goes, then they might as well really look at what's going on. And if you're going to forget about outer space and what is coming in from that solar neighborhood, then you are just blaming man and not even taking into account the natural facets of what goes on globally. I mean, volcanoes and what other sources of CO2.
Yeah. Excellent answer. Thank you, sir.
I almost forgot about the reason why I even brought up volcanoes. So combined with the highest solar activity in 11,000 years, occurring from the 1940s to 2005 or so, for the second half of that, we have seen record low stratospheric aerosols from volcanoes, the kinds of things that reflect sunlight back out into the sky. I actually dropped off for a second there. But anyway, I was just telling everybody that during this period of global warming, we had record low cooling from volcanoes, which helped out, and record high solar activity, which helped out. And then we want to think about, okay, we had that record high for 11,000 years in terms of solar activity. We had record low cooling potential from volcanoes. All of these things should have signaled major warming on the planet. And we have 1 degree of global warming. And not only is it only 1 degree of global warming on the back of the highest solar activity in 11,000 years and the lowest volcanic cooling, but that 1 degree is not like yesterday or today. That was back in 2016, coming off the record El Nino event that we have. And so record high solar activity, record low volcanic cooling, record El Nino, 1 degree of global warming. When the interglacial ends, the tropics are going to see a 10-degree drop, mid-latitudes 20, and it could be somewhere closer to 30-degree drops at the polar regions. This is a joke, global warming. This thing that they're trying to scare us about, okay, even if, let's go ahead and I'll go ahead and I'll play devil's advocate. I'll let the other side cheat. Let's call it 2.5 degrees, their scary point right now. Are you kidding me? With what it took to actually see that record high solar activity, record low volcanic cooling, record high heat release from the ocean, which is what El Nino is. Heat release from the ocean. Compared to what we've got coming, this thing they call global warming is nothing. You take away that low volcanic cooling, you take away that ultra high solar forcing, we're already on the descent into the ice age. Guaranteed. And we know that the sun basically left that super grand maximum approximately 10 to 15 years ago. It is my best judgment and math based on, yes, some guesses and assumptions, but they're well founded. They're not pulled out of a hat. It is another 10 to 15 years before this drop in solar activity really begins to take its toll. Because a lot of this energy that the sun gave us over the last century, it is stored in various ways in the atmosphere, in the crust, in the oceans, and in the mantle. It's not like, oh, the sun goes quiet today and the world freezes tomorrow. No, not quite. But over the next decade to 2 decades, as the sun's energy drop really begins to be felt in the atmosphere, what happens if at the same time the volcanoes return? And we happen to know that Earth's magnetic field is getting weaker and weaker and weaker. This is, by the way, a completely unrelated but vastly more terrifying thing that's happening on the planet right now. You're probably going to have me back on sometime to talk about that. But the short version of that story is we're getting more cosmic rays which create clouds. If you've ever seen a cosmic ray cloud chamber, something you could just Google, look at on YouTube or whatever, same basic idea. It works in the atmosphere. And because this planet is not Venus and our clouds are not black and yellow and browns and they don't absorb light and transform it into heat, they perfectly reflect it back off into space. That is another thing that will work to cool the planet. All of these things, the drop in the sun, the return of the volcanoes, the increase in cosmic ray-driven cloud reflection cooling called albedo. All of these things are basically forecast to be the remainder of this century. That's what we've got on deck. And if I could personify this ice age that, looking over geologic time, dominates. Every once in a while it has these little tiny interglacials. It's almost like a glitch. It's like it almost tripped. It's like it's got a pimple on its nose for a couple of days. If I can personify the true nature of this planet, she sees us right now and the entire world looking the other way, worried about global warming, worried about this, listening to that, getting the wrong information. And if there's one thing I've learned about the universe, is she is a snitch and she has the greatest sense of irony you could ever imagine.
Well, that's why I feel like, our organizations are setting us up for a fall. And, in the end, if they allow us to fall for that, while the universe is actually trying to tell us something. Like you've just explained to us a lot about what the universe and our solar neighborhood is trying to tell us. And at the same time, we have to recognize that our associations and our organizations are just feeding us nothing. They're feeding us nothing and expecting us to believe everything. And I mean, when it got down to, and I don't want to say anything bad about Greta, but when it got down to Greta telling me that, scolding me about climate change, I got to a point where, listen, that's going to really aggravate me if you're not going to spill the beans on everything else. You know what I mean? When you're going to start scolding people for not understanding and not taking action, and then not scolding without your information, because they don't even they're not even looking outside in the universe.
No,
they're not really not once do they say, well, because we are living in this this solar neighborhood, not once do you hear that. So that's why it was really important for me to bring you on, because your information is important and it's right now, and it needs to be policy. It needs to be policy or part of policy.
Well, and the sad thing is that little girl doesn't even know what she's talking about.
No, of course not. Of course not.
But she was right about one thing. Her childhood has been stolen from her. But it was stolen from her by the people who decided to weaponize an autistic 16-year-old girl.
That's why I don't want to say anything bad.
Childhood. That's what happened.
So a child is still a child.
A weapon.
And you know what? And it hurts. That weapon hurts. I mean, when that most recent one where she's sitting in front of the UN and you're sitting down there, and I just want to hear what she has to say, and her emotion and what she's able to draw from, whatever it is that she's able to draw from to get that raw emotion out. That stuff drives people. That's like telling them, and in the end, it's telling them a lie. It's telling them a less than half truth. It's all, it's not all the people. It's not all people. It's people plus environment plus events. And if you follow, and what I'll do is I'll put Ben's link, of course, to his YouTube channel, and I've already left a link in for the global forcing. I want people to go. It's not that I recommend people to go and find Ben on YouTube and go through some of his videos, and he does a daily report all the time. So if you subscribe to Ben and you are getting your subscription updates every day, you're going to be updated on what is going on in our solar neighborhood and how it may and will affect our climate here, rather than getting scolded at from your TV screen or your handheld device. We're not here to scold you. We're here to love you through the problems of learning what's really going on, and that's really what it's about. Now, if it's your heart's content, now, Ben, that's one thing that's changed with me. I've come to an understanding that if a man's heart's content is to believe something, you cannot change it, and you shouldn't. It's those who do not have their heart's content set yet that are the people that you should work with to try to help them discover, as you discover the truth at the same time. But when I get down to a person now who they believe what they believe, bro, you can believe whatever you want to believe, but you know what? It's not right. That's
I do take that. I do try to take that approach. I will say though that when a person's deeply held beliefs causes them to lash out at other people and behave in the kinds of ways that the Secretary General of the World Meteorological Organization pointed out, then any peace in their own heart is a phantom. They're lying to themselves or to everybody else, because there's no way that you can be at peace with yourself and behave the way these people are behaving. It's asinine.
It's a big period. There's a period on the end of that sentence. And we had Ben for this first hour. Now, Ben, I will talk to you and chat to you behind the scenes, and hopefully you'll come back on again. It sounded like you're open to coming on again, because if you'll ever come on again, man, I'll make the time available to you, because I know your information is now real time, important. Like I said, I mean, it resonates with me as much as this other stuff is supposed to resonate with me, and it does, the scolding and all this other information. Your information is right there to balance what they're trying to give us. Okay.
Well, I would love to come back on and talk about that magnetic field of Earth situation that I mentioned. I don't know if you caught this, Francis, but I got in a quasi public little academic tiff with a Harvard professor about 4 months ago. And
which one?
His name is Manasvi Lingam. He's from the Harvard Center for Astrophysics.
Yeah, I
Center.
I connected with Abby Loeb. Yes, go ahead. What happened?
Abby's a good guy, but Manasvi put out a paper that basically said magnetic changes on the planet were not dangerous to the biosphere. I took strong issue with the methods and the conclusions, and the world's #1 geophysical journal, Reviews in Geophysics, came out about 2 weeks later and basically put the stamp on them as true extinction level events. And unfortunately, we're going through one of those, the starting bits of it right now. It's happening as all this other stuff is happening, unfortunately. And it really does look like the same kind of thing that has taken out a good number of species on this planet is about to happen again on this planet. And it might make a lot of this climate stuff seem superfluous. I would love to come back and chat about
what is it? What is it? Say one word. What is it? And then we'll save it for the next show. It'll be a cliffhanger. It is
the magnetic reversal.
Okay, we'll leave it for the next show.
Thank you.
Hey, Ben, thank you so much for coming on to this second anniversary show, Collision Course, here on freedomslips.com every Sunday between 8 and 10 p.m. Eastern Time. It was great talking to you. It's been 7 years. I'm going to look forward to talking to you again on the next time we get together when you're available. My listeners really appreciate it. They really love you. We all love you very much. Everyone in the chat room, they're all sharing your links back and forth now. They really loved hearing from you. Apologize for the hiccups, but I guess that's live production.
It happens every time I'm talking to one of those scientists at NASA or I'm doing an interview. So one can only speculate from there. Well,
clear skies. Say hello to the kids and have a good rest of your evening. I thank you so much.
You too, sir. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, everyone. That was a great hour with Ben. I know there was some hiccups, but like it's live production. Everybody tells me that happens. It happens. We're going to have Ben on again. If you remember 7 years ago, Ben would come on regularly and give us a 5-minute update. We may just get back to that or every other couple of weeks. That is excellent because I believe Ben he's got his fingers, his hands, his whole arms where they need to be. Because like I said, if we're going to have the discussion about global climate change, then they better be ready to listen to the universe, because the universe is telling us something. The universe is interacting with us. The universe is going to play a part no matter whether we want it to or not, whether we recognize it or not. The universe is here to stay. And all the things that Ben were talking about is so important to hear. That's why I tried all for a number of weeks to try to bring people to the show so that they could hear what was going on from Ben. Because if they didn't know Ben, I know a lot of folks do. We have a lot of folks who love Ben and listen to Ben on a daily basis who are already subscribed over on YouTube. I do recommend going over to YouTube and subscribing to his channel, Suspicious0bservers.org. I saw that the address in the chat room. We have some chatters who are sharing the links in there. They shared the climate forcing video in there. I did a little bit earlier. That's what it was all about for tonight. So happy to reconnect with Ben. So happy that he's so nice. It's nice to meet nice people who say, yes, I'll give you time and I'll come on to your show and I'll tell you what's important, because if you haven't heard it, you need to hear it. All right, everyone, we're going to be coming up on a break in just a little bit. So what we're going to do, as always, but this is going to be at the beginning of the top of the hour, is I'm going to open up the CNOS page so we can check out what asteroids are going to fly by. We're interested in what's going to be flying by our neighborhood coming up for the next, between October 8th and October 9th. Woo-wee! It's busy. Between October 8th and October 9th, we have 10 objects flying by. We got 7 flying by October 8th and 3 flying by October 9th. The closest one to fly by on October 9th is 1.41 lunar distances. So that's 250 plus 250 is 700,000 miles away. 1.47 to a lunar distance and a half, 4.38, 3.49. Let's go see the size of these things. Not very large, 37 meters, 16 meters, 51 meters, 20 meters, 27 meters. Let's go back and find out when they were discovered. It's a 10 out of 10 list, y'all. 10 out of 10 objects were discovered in the last 2 weeks. And this is a year. On our second anniversary show, this is the first week where we hit 10 out of 10. 2019 TU, 2019 TW1, 2019 RK, 2019 TC1, 2019 SB6, 2019 TM, 2019 TS, 2019 TV1, 2019 TZ, 2019 SL7. S and T's starts. T's, I think, are October, so I mean, we could be in the last week. These 10 objects were discovered. Let's go on to page 2. Let's see how many are on page 2. Am I on page 2? Everything on the list was discovered in the last 2 weeks. Let's go to page 3. Okay, not everything, but there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items on there. Hey, we're going to be coming up on break. This is Collision Course on FreedomSys.com. FreedomSys.com is a champion of free speech, supported solely by the listeners. Without the listeners, this station wouldn't be here. If you're listening, go to FreedomSys.com. Click on the donate button today. Help the station support free speech. My show, Collision Course, airs every Sunday between 8 and 10 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on FreedomSys.com. Studio A Player. We welcome Ben to the first hour of the show, and he went over, as much as you could for the first hour, climate forcing, and how our climate information is really one-sided. Really, really one-sided, and how it shouldn't be, and how we need to recognize that we need to be aware that when we are informed about the weather and what's going to happen and how it's the hottest month in so many years, we need to go back and see what's really going on in our solar neighborhood. Okay, everyone, this is Francis Collision Course. We're coming at the top of the hour. We'll be back in one moment.
Mr. Rowe. I am the host of Reality Extraction on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I utilize logic, intellect, and magic to methodically autonomize, vivisect, analyze, examine, study, scrutinize, and extract an essence of reality from a fog of illusion and confusion. You can find me on Studio B every Thursday at 1700 hours Pacific Time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern. No topic taboo, no subject too strange. I strive to take a neutral standpoint during the dissection of the topic at hand. That's Reality Extraction with Mr. Rowe on Revolution Radio.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
post-syndicalist commune. We take it in turns to act as a sort of executive officer for the week. Yes. But all the decisions of that officer have to be ratified at a special bi-weekly meeting. Yes, I see. By a simple majority in the case of purely internal affairs. Be quiet. But by a 2/3 majority in the case of more... Be quiet. I order you to be quiet. Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left. Yes, I have. Look! It's just a flesh wound.
I don't believe I've seen such a display of courage, skill, nerve, grace, and stupidity.
I'll do you for that. Oh, what? Come here. What are you going to do, bleed on me? I'm invincible. You're a loony. The Black Knights always triumph.
Roundtable Live, Monday through Friday, 1 a.m. till 4 a.m. Eastern Time. Bring your mind, bring your ideas, bring your voice. King Arthur had nothing on us here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com.
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
Several years ago, I was developing a very severe situation. I called it my flippy heart. It was doing not good things, and I did not want to go to a medical doctor because I just knew they would give me a cover-up pill. I didn't want to get onto that sort of thing at all. When I learned it was garlic and cayenne is a healer. It is a wonderful herb. I said, I think I'm onto something here. I'll tell you, I wouldn't be without it. It did wonderful things for me.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Francis with Collision Course, our second anniversary here on freedomslips.com. We've just moved over to Studio A every Sunday between 8 and 10 p.m. Eastern Time. We welcome you to listen to Collision Course every week. I want to say hello to everyone in the chat room. I'm going to click over to the chat room and see who's in there. Harry, Lady Horse, LB, Mitchell, Sam Squatch, Popsicle Toes. I hope you all are doing good. Cat Dog Girl, Space Weather Monkey, thanks for joining us. Suri, how are you? Jerry, I hope everyone's having a good night. I'm having a good night. We're going to get into our second hour, and our second hour is going to be a little bit more collision course when we're looking at our asteroids in particular. Before the break, we made a little discovery about this week's list of asteroids, and for the last year we've been going to the list of asteroids with close approaches and trying to see how many have been discovered just recently and trying to understand why so many are being discovered so recently and watching them come in close approach to Earth. And this week we have 20 out of 20 objects will be flying by from October 8th to October 18th. 20 objects are going to fly by from October 8th to October 18th. Let's go to the first 10. October 8th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 objects are flying by close approach on October 8th. October 8th, closest 1.47. The farthest is 16.64. Let's look at the other ones. 1.47. 3.49, 4.38, 7.75. They are all, in my estimation, relatively close approaches in those million-mile markers of close approaches. 8 of them are flying by on October 8th. I have them listed here from 6:27 a.m. UTC time to 14:36 p.m. UTC time. And then on October 9th, let me just flip over to the second page. We have 3 objects flying by. Closest one at 1.41. That's a lunar distance and a half. 2019 SL7 will fly by relatively quickly. the fastest of them all, 17.06. That is a very fast speed for this type of object, 36 meters. So this list is telling me that very active, a lot of new discoveries. It's the first time I've hit 20 out of 20. I haven't hit 10 out of 10, but to flip to the second page and see that it's 20 out of 20, that means there's a lot of discoveries going on. And the specialists will say, well, that's because our technology is getting better and our telescopes and our observations, our surveys are better. I see at their magnitudes that they're all about 25 and 26. I reported in the past that when these objects reach a certain brightness or magnitude, it is at that point that they begin to be able to be found on sky survey images. And when they get to certain sizes, most of these sizes, you go from 33, 38, 44, 46, 36, 49, 34, 25, 140 meters. That one's rather large. That one's flying by at 17.64 on October 10th. It looks to be the biggest one. But that's our update. We have 8 objects flying by tomorrow. Not tomorrow, on the 8th, 8 objects fly by. On the 9th, 3. On the 10th, 1. On the 12th, 4. 13th, 2. 16, 1. 18, 2. And then they go out to December 3rd. Basically, it gives you 21, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, what's important about these objects is that these are the known objects. So as we are discovering that 20 out of 10 have been discovered in the last 2 weeks, we can expect that there might be some objects discovered off this list and found in the time frame that these are passing by. So we'll have to pay attention to those in the event that something pops up that is out of the norm. I want to rest assure everyone that while we go to this list to check on the list and close approaches and what's out of the ordinary and what may be atypical, there is also a whole nother level of observers that we're connected to who make observations of objects that have yet to reach this list. So let's say something isn't on this list and it's discovered tomorrow. There's places like North Holt Branch Observatories in London who are reading the images, not reading it, observing, marking, noting, doing their discovery research on images that are taken of sky surveys, looking for objects. And when they make discoveries, they report them on Facebook posts. There's also Josh John, who's another observer, who when he makes observations, his posts come up. So there's also a background network of observers that we can rely on for observations of objects that are coming in, because normally one of the first, second, third questions that would come our way is, well, how do we know, when will we know if an object that isn't on this list is on its way in? Well, last week we discussed a little bit about the nuances of making new discoveries and why some objects may be discovered before they get here and why some objects may be discovered after they arrive. There is a major play of the location of the object, sun side or not, and then also how much that object moves across a static star field. You know, all these objects are moving. Whether it's a program or a person who's looking at the images will be able to notice these objects because they move across a static star field. But in some directions, in some trajectories, in some approaches, the objects are approaching in such a way is that they're not moving side to side or up and down or diagonally across the field of static stars. They're moving as almost a direct motion toward us. And those are objects that are very hard to discover, as we discovered when we researched 2019 OK, which was discovered in July of this year, which wasn't discovered until 30 minutes of its close approach, and its close approach was very close. And so I like to stay on top of this list each week. I like to stay on top of my network of observers who are observing. Because this week there was a post. Someone made a post about what they do. It was a picture of 2P Churymenko, the comet 67P, two Russian names, Jeremenko, Chesanoki. I'm sorry, I just murdered that. But 67P, and they placed it over a city, and it's a very big object, so it dwarfed the city. And then one of the comments in the post was, will NASA tell us if something like this is coming our way? And I commented back, because it's absolutely true, that these discoveries here that I just reported on, most of them aren't discovered by NASA at all. They're discovered by professional, and amateur astronomers who are looking out in the night sky every night. We're talking millions and millions of them now, globally, looking out above the equator, below the equator to the southern sky, above the equator to the northern sky, with their telescopes directed in the locations that they should be pointed in to pick up objects that we need to know about. Now, we even have Gennady Borisov, who discovered the most recent interstellar comet on its way in. Not a government organization, but an astronomer who quickly made the information available to the public, and it gets through. So to have an idea in your head that you're not going to get information about some objects is, for the most part, probably false to 100% false, because of so many amateur astronomers who are out there doing the work every night to find these objects. So according to this list, we have some 1.41, 1.47. That's a lunar distance and a half. That's, 250 plus 125, 375,000 miles from Earth. Sure, they're close on a universal scale. But the list, the orbital parameters are in place. The ones we have to worry about are the ones that aren't discovered. Okay, next, there's some stuff going on as something occurs, as fireballs may be visible this week, because we have two meteor showers that are occurring basically at the same time. So we're going to go from potential close approaches and hazardous asteroids to fireballs in the night sky. Now, these fireballs are basically meteor showers, the debris left over by ancient comets as Earth passes through their orbital path. October features the peak of 3 meteor showers, indeed, with the first reaching its climax on Tuesday evening. Tuesday, October 8th, into Wednesday, October 9th. The Draconid meteor shower kicks off the fall meteor shower season. Dave Samuel, AccuWeather astronomy blogger and meteorologist, said, the Draconids are considered a minor meteor shower with only around 10 meteors per hour, but on occasion can fill the sky with hundreds of meteors. One such outburst happened in 2018 when observers in Europe counted over 140 meteors per hour, according to the International Meteor Organization. An outburst like this is not expected in 2019, however. The Draconids are notorious for being unpredictable, so there is still a chance for a burst for an hour or two with much higher rates, Samuel said. Unlike most meteor showers that are best viewed during the second half of the night, the Draconids come in greatest number before midnight. This is a good shower for younger stargazers, especially since the shower peaks on a school night, Samuel said. Unfortunately, the moon will be in the sky during this part of the night, so stargazers should look for meteors in areas of the sky away from the bright moon. Mainly cloud-free conditions are in the forecast across much of the United States on Tuesday night for the Draconids, but clouds could hinder views of stargazers in the southeast, northern plains, and perhaps part of the northeast coast. Southern Taurid meteor shower when Wednesday, October 9th into Thursday, October 10th. Immediately following the Draconids will be the Southern Taurids, the second meteor shower to peak in as many nights. Similar to the Draconids, the Southern Taurids are a minor shower with fewer than 10 meteors per hour, but don't let the slim number discourage you. The Taurids are rich in fireballs, the American Meteor Society said on their website. Fireballs are meteors that appear incredibly bright as they streak through the sky. They can be so bright that they can cast shadows on the ground for several seconds. Mainly clear skies will allow for uninterrupted viewing conditions for much of the U.S. on Wednesday night, with the exception of widespread clouds over the northern plains, as well as along the coastal northeast. Folks that missed these meteor showers do not have to wait long for another opportunity to spot some shooting stars. The Orionid meteor shower peaks later this month on the night of October 21st into October 22nd, and usually brings around 20 meteors per hour. Where should you look in the sky during a meteor shower? One of the biggest misconceptions with meteor showers is that you need to look in a certain part of the sky to see shooting stars, when the opposite is true. During the peak of a meteor shower, meteors are visible in all areas of the sky, not just near the radiant point. You want to get as much sky in your field of view as possible, Samuel said. My favorite approach to meteor viewing is to find a comfortable lounge chair or even a yoga mat to lie on. Although you do not need to look at the radiant point, its location in the sky is still important. The higher the radiant point is in the sky, the greater number of meteors will be visible. Knowing where the radiant point of the Draconids and the southern Taurids will also help onlookers know the origin of meteors they have seen. If you see a shooting star and trace it backward, it will point toward the shower's radiant point. Onlookers that see meteors originating from the northwestern sky will know that they are part of the Draconids. Meanwhile, those that can be traced back to the eastern sky will be part of the southern Taurids. All right. I'm going to leave that link in the chat room so everybody does get a chance to read that if they want to read that themselves. If they're stargazers and looking for a meteor storm over the next couple of days to a week, that's a great result right there. Okay. So we went from asteroids to meteors, and we're going to end up on an astronomy.com article, Ask Astro, Rogue Star. It's a star. There's a discussion about a rogue star, not a rogue star, a star that came close enough that it actually entered into our Oort cloud, just quite a distance away. But in 2011 and 2012, I would have swore up and down that a star had never entered into our solar system because it would have caused too much havoc on our solar system. And then in 2015, it was reported that indeed there was a star that came as close as our solar system as to enter into the Oort cloud at the farthest reaches. And it is an interaction with the solar system that's important to recognize. There's also some added information about observing it that I'll repeat because I found it to be very interesting. But I wanted to get into this Ask Astro Rogue Star. My caption, Schultz's star makes the news. I'm glad because I want to know more about Schultz's star. In 2011, there was no news, and I would say no star had ever been in our solar system. I would be wrong until 2015 when the news was first reported on. I'll talk about it this Sunday like I am. And it's Ask Astro Rogue Star in astronomy.com. And I'll also link this in the chat room for everyone to follow later if they want to. Astronomers recently discovered that Schultz's star passed close to the sun 70,000 years ago. Wouldn't its gravity have sent Oort cloud comets raining into inner planets? Based on the number of long-period comets that enter the inner solar system, astronomers estimate there are probably trillions of them in the Oort cloud. The origins of the Oort cloud have been debated. Older research suggests these icy bodies were ejected from the solar system during its formation. More recently, some researchers have proposed that interactions with other stars in the sun's original birth cluster were part of the story. And indeed, many or most of the Oort cloud comets may have even been stolen from the vicinity of other stars. There's a 98% likelihood that Schultz's star passed through the outer low-density part of the Oort cloud. But the danger zone, so to speak, is likely when another star passes within 20,000 astronomical units of the sun, the so-called inner Oort cloud, because there are far more comets in this region. In almost every simulation, Schultz's star passed well beyond that threshold. Studies do show that a star passing at about 10 times that distance could cause some comets to come into the inner solar system, but there are fewer comets in the Oort cloud that far out. A recent simulation by a group of German astronomers demonstrated such an encounter would be unlikely to cause a spike in impacts on Earth. And scientists who study the effects of stellar flybys agree that Schultz's star would have had similarly little effect on the Oort cloud in a long-period comet flux. I thought that was going to be the more informative article, but basically what it's saying is confirmation of Schultz's star. Schultz's star came in close enough to enter into parts of the Oort cloud. I would not have believed that, but now I have to because this is what they're saying. Unique thing about Schultz's star. Its angle of course, as it came into our Oort cloud, it was moving in one direction and then moved away. But the direction that this Schultz's star is moving is an odd direction, and it's hard to measure. And it is because it is moving in such a direction, according to their reports, that it's like a straight away. So just imagine looking at something and it is moving directly away from you. It would be hard to tell if it was moving away from you or towards you. I say that because one of the articles, as I was reading about Schultz's star, brought that up, and I found that very interesting. Why would you bring that up? That it would be very hard to tell if it was moving away or if it was moving toward us. It was an interesting fact because it left me feeling like, well, does that mean that you really don't know whether it's moving toward us or moving away from us? But you've already said that it's interacted with our Oort cloud, so obviously it must be moving away. Okay. Asteroids, comets, Oort clouds, interstellar travelers, Schultz's star, everything is moving. Nothing is stable. And yet the Earth goes round and round. We have the object, it's now SI/Borisov, the interstellar comet, and we're going to have to keep up on it, and it's going to be in the sky almost or up to and over a year. I'll tell you right now, yes, Cosmic Obsession Kerrville is very interested in taking images of Comet 2I/Borisov, the interstellar traveler, but it is in a position close to the horizon, which makes it, for a lot of enclosed telescopes, like the ones under the roll-off roof at Cosmic Obsession Kerrville, makes it hard to see. And in fact, it makes it impossible to see because we don't have a view to the horizon. Now, that will change as the comet comes into view and it processes its way past perihelion, its closest approach to the sun on December 8th, and then it moves on its orbital path away from the sun. And as it moves away from the sun, we're not going to get any before the sun, I don't think, but definitely afterwards we're going to get our own views. And we're going to see a lot of views from astronomers who are paying attention to it. I'm going to share this link. Okay. Before dawn on August 30th, an amateur, like I was saying, amateurs, semi-professionals, they're doing the work. They're putting the hours in. An amateur astronomer named Gennady Borisov spotted an alien visitor, a comet from beyond the confines of our solar system. That object, now named 2I Borisov, is just the second confirmed interstellar object ever detected inside our cosmic neighborhood. Now, as large telescopes around the world turn their gaze toward Borisov, astronomers are beginning to glean tantalizing clues about the comet's composition and its track through the heavens. Each new data point reveals a bit more about the chemistry of Borisov's home star system and, in turn, how unique our own solar system is within the cosmos. The first known interstellar interloper, a comet called Oumuamua. That's not. Oumuamua never. Well, that is a real description that is leaving out a lot of information. Oumuamua really didn't present a cometary activity. So to call Oumuamua a comet is something that is atypical. Oumuamua was an object that did not present cometary properties. The only reason why, and I'll tell you why, the only reason why that they said here a comet called Oumuamua is because after it passed the sun, it increased in speed after it had already achieved full gravity pull by the sun. As objects come into the sun, the pull of the sun increases up into a point, and they call it maximum gravity pull, full pull, whatever it is. And then once it gets past full pull, that speed is going to be consistent with the path that the object takes. Now, if that path has to interact with another large mass object, then you're going to have a new gravity pull and go through that. Oumuamua, it was found after it came by the sun. So it had already occurred, full gravity pull. It was discovered afterwards. There should have been no differential in speed. It had already achieved full pull, had made the turn on its way out, and it increased speed. Right? And not only did it increase speed, it changed course 12,000 miles. Nobody really wants to say that, but I'll keep saying it, and I'll say it in that just kind of drop it on you kind of way. So here it is. The first known interstellar interloper, a comet called Oumuamua, discovered in 2017, which really has to be debated, and we can debate it here on the show and another show, wasn't found until it was already headed out of the solar system after full pull. Studying it put astronomers through their paces as they raced to decipher some of the comet's more enigmatic traits, including its bizarrely oblong shape. But ultimately, Oumuamua left more questions than answers in its wake. By contrast, Borisov is currently incoming, and views should only get better toward the end of the year. We'll be able to do a heck of a lot more in terms of compositional studies, says Queen's University Belfast astronomer Michelle Bannister. Still, the timing is tight, and astronomers are now scrambling to file proposals with some of the world's biggest telescopes to ensure that they can gather the most possible detail. Man, this was frustrating. We were not ready. We had not done our homework yet, said Karen Meach, an astronomer at the University of Hawaii's Institute for Astronomy. I guess that's nature's way of saying you better not be unprepared. Well, let me have a commentary on this sentence, too, because I interviewed Karen Meach when Oumuamua came around, because Miss Karen Meach just happened to be the person who was the first head astronomer over in Hawaii to receive the handout from the assistant who said, here, this is what we found. We found something interstellar. And then she went and she did whatever. So for her to now say, wouldn't you find it hard to say that if you were Karen Meach and you were the person who received the first handout about Oumuamua, went through the whole process of designating it, naming it, coming on collision course and talking to a guy named Francis about it, telling us exactly their process that they did. Now, the only problem with there wasn't any problem really with the process. The problem was the object was very hard to get information from. So they had their processes. They got their telescope time, right? But the object was very hard to see. So for her to come back and have this statement, man, this was frustrating. We were not ready. We had not done our homework yet. I mean, Oumuamua was 2017. This is 2019. In 2 years, you should have volumes of preparedness. So, Miss Meach, I'm sorry. An astronomer at the University of Hawaii's Institute for Astronomy, I guess that's nature's way of saying you better not be unprepared. I wonder if I call her up and have her interview her and I say, how can you not be unprepared when you had one 2 years ago? That scout, that first line of battle. That's why astronomers can't resist sifting through the early data and getting their first good look at a fragment from another solar system. Basically, my whole career, we've been waiting for this, and it's exciting to see it finally happen, says Luke Dones, an astrodynamicist at the Southwest Research Institute who studies comets. That Southwest Research Institute's a great place. Spitting cyanide. Perhaps the most extraordinary thing is just how ordinary Borisov appears. Early results collected by astronomers in Spain, Poland, and the Netherlands show that visually the object looks a lot like our own solar system's own comets, with a reddish surface made of a carbon-rich schmutz. Borisov also resembles our comets in terms of composition. In a study subtitled to Astrophysical Journal Letters on September 27th, a group including Meach and Queen's University Belfast astronomer Alan Fitzsimmons reported that Borisov is jettisoning about 170 grams of cyanide every second as sunlight warms up the comet's icy surface. The cyanide is no surprise. It's one of the first things that astronomers typically detect in more locally sourced comets. And Borisov isn't unusual in its gassiness. It's less than half as effusive as the comet sighting Spring was during its 2014 flight through the inner solar system. Researchers can also place some rough constraints on the size of the cometary core or nucleus embedded within its halo of gas and dust. Right now, it seems that the nucleus is no bigger than 5 miles wide, and it's more likely between half a mile and 2 miles wide. It seems ironic that Oumuamua was so weird, and this object seems pretty much like a typical solar system comet, Doan said. A fuzzy trajectory. In addition, a team of Polish astronomers has taken a first crack at trying to trace Borisov's path through interstellar space. As they describe in a paper uploaded to the preprint platform ARXIV, the team suggests that Borisov passed within 5.4 light years of a star system named Kruger 60 about 1 million years ago. At that time, they calculate that Borisov was moving at the fairly pedestrian velocity of 7,700 miles an hour. And though the researchers stress that the analysis will change with more data, that might mean Kruger 60 is a plausible home system for Borisov, they say. The Polish team is already well respected for doing this kind of work, publishing similar looks at comets that formed in the solar system's deep outskirts. But at this point, any effort to retrace Borisov's steps will run into intense skepticism. Quote, I think it's totally premature, Meach says. For starters, while we know Borisov's trajectory well enough to confirm that it is interstellar, there's still some uncertainty about its exact path through space. In part, this is because we observed the object for only a short time. It's also because Borisov is shrouded in dust and gas, which makes its center hard to pinpoint. Borisov is also still in the low night sky near the horizon. This means light from the comet passes through more air before it reaches our telescopes, letting the atmosphere layer on even more potential error. What my colleagues are seeing is huge chunks of the data that have terrible accuracy, Meach says. It's not because everyone's being sloppy, but it's really hard to measure the exact center of a fuzzy object. As sunlight heats up Borisov, the dust and gas flying off its surface can also act like rocket exhaust and nudge the comet's trajectory. Astronomers don't yet have a good handle on those non-gravitational forces, so they can't account for them in their calculations. All right, I'm going to read that again. As sunlight heats up Borisov, the dust and gas flying off its surface can also act like rocket exhaust and nudge the comet's trajectory. Astronomers don't yet have a good handle on these non-gravitational forces, so they can't account for them in their calculations. Most of my understanding about orbital paths, cometary, asteroidal, once you get things moving in a certain path, it's hard to get it off that path, even if it's ejecting material. That's why when you look at a comet's orbit, you don't see it wavy and all this other stuff. It still maintains a path. I am taking some of this information out of this article, and I'm putting it at 1 or 2 Pinocchios. I've got a couple of Pinocchios in this article, but it is their story. I just feel there's just some Pinocchios. On top of that, backtracking Borisov's path requires rewinding the clock and determining where stars in the Milky Way used to be. But right now, the world's best mapping data set for the Milky Way, courtesy of the European Space Agency's Gaia satellite, gives 3D motion data for only a small fraction of the galaxy's total stars. Quote, You have to make the three-dimensional movie of the galaxy and play it backward with gravitational perturbations, and even then, you don't get the origin star. You get the last port of call, Bannister says. As it stands, these errors are stymieing far shorter-term projects. Mark Bowie, an astronomer at the Southwest Research Institute, would love to watch Borisov pass directly in front of several stars, which would let him discern the comet's size and shape more exactly. But to plan out those observations, Bowie says that Borisov's orbit would need to be known thousands of times more precisely than it is now. If you don't know where it is, and we don't know where it's going on the timescale of a year in our solar system, what hope do you have of knowing exactly which star it came from a million years ago? He says, I'm very, very skeptical of our ability to know where it's come from at this point. The best is yet to come. Still, efforts to study Borisov are only just beginning. The comet will remain visible for the next year or so, and the best opportunities to see it are still ahead of us. The comet will make its closest approach to the sun around December 8th, and proposals are piling up to keep an eye on the show using the world's biggest telescopes, including the Hubble, the European Southern Observatory's Very Large Telescope, and the ALMA Telescope Array. For practical reasons, humans won't be sending a last-ditch flyby mission to visit the careening comet, but researchers with the Initiative for Interstellar Studies, a UK-based nonprofit, did calculate that for a spacecraft to reach Borisov. The robotic emissary would need to launch in 2030 atop NASA's not-yet operational Space Launch System, which will be one of Earth's most powerful rockets when completed. The good news is that the next time objects like Borisov and Oumuamua pass through our neighborhood, we'll be ready. Astronomers expect that the Large Synoptic Survey Telescope, a huge new facility being built in Chile, will detect many more interstellar objects. Quote, the estimates before Borisov were that LSST, when it's up and running, is going to be able to find one interstellar object a year, Bowie said. But if this is really telling us that there are far more prevalent and far more varied in their appearance and attributes, wow, we could be looking at a really, really exciting time. Bowie adds that LSST might detect interstellar objects even sooner on their approach, buying us more time to observe, and maybe even visit them. Already, concepts for interceptors are getting off the ground. In June, the European Space Agency announced its comet concepts for interceptors are getting off the ground. In June, the European Space Agency announced its Comet Interceptor mission, which will launch in 2028 and park in a gravitational neutral point off Earth. It will then lie in wait, available to fly by a newly incoming local comet or maybe even an interstellar sequel. I think it would be wonderful to have a spacecraft ready to go to one of these objects, Doan said. They're just completely unexplored. And that's the end of the article. I'm not sure if I shared it in the chat room. I want to check. Very interesting. These types of objects are going to be very interesting, going to be very revealing. Who knows what they're going to be really, except that they're going to be very, very interesting to watch as they come through. I know that I'm totally enthralled by interstellar objects, especially because Oumuamua was so strange, especially because I just read that article and I got a couple of Pinocchios out of it. So we're gonna keep paying attention to that because it's important to know. It'll come right down here. I want to tell you that really, if you are using Facebook, I really recommend that you go to Collision Course, the Collision Course page. The name of it is at Collision Course 321. We have the observatory at Cosmic Obsession Kerrville. That's another page. We have my personal page. The personal page is Fuzzy Was Here, Facebook.com, Fuzzy Was Here, Facebook.com, Collision Course 321, Facebook.com, Cosmic Obsession Kerrville. On those pages, you are going to be kept as much up to date as anyone, including myself. I use those locations to put the links that I'm most interested in to get the information that I need to bring to the show. In the upcoming future, we're going to be having some really cool guests. We're going to bring back Gordon James Giannotto soon. We're going to have Jay-Z from Stranger Advice. We're going to have some new guests. I'm hoping to put together a panel of Planet X experts. Planet X and Planet 7X. Specifically, I'd like to get Gordon James Giannotto, Terrell 03, and Gil Broussard on one panel here on Collision Course. I think that would be a great panel. So in the upcoming week and weeks, I'm going to be reaching out to all those folks. I know that Gordon would come on right away. Gordon and I have become friends, contact regularly. No problem to have Gordon. I believe I can reach out to Terrell and Gil, and hopefully they'll all come together. I think it would be great to have a discussion on that topic, because it would be great to hear the three of them exchange their thoughts on the same item. Other notes that were important this week. A new paper was written, for the longest time we were looking for Planet X. And for the longest time we've been getting information about a so-called Planet 9. And when I spoke to an astronomer from Arizona, Renu Malhotra, she also spoke about a potential Planet X, Planet 10. And Planet 10 was basically an Earth-sized planet out past Neptune, a yet discovered planet. And then at the same time, you could have Planet 9, a large gaseous giant way out. And both those scenarios, having both those bodies in our solar system, is, according to Renu Malhotra, fits into what's going on. This week, there's some information dropped in a paper created about what if there is in our solar system a black hole the size of a baseball. And I'm going to find this because it's extremely, extremely interesting. I want to get it out. Black hole size baseball solar system. Please pop up. Oh, I didn't even type it. Black hole in solar system. So basically what they were describing, and I've got to find it still, is that there is a potential with all this Planet 9, hunt for Planet 9, and hunt for Planet X, and hunt for all of these other objects. There are some researchers who have put data together and have considered of the potential of having a baseball-sized black hole in our solar system. And I found that extremely interesting, and I know that I have it. I just have to pull it up. We had the anniversary of Sputnik occur. October 4th, 1957, was when the Soviets first launched the Sputnik spacecraft. Also, there's a story. There was fireballs that fell over Chile, and they weren't meteors. They were something else. They fell to the ground. They caused fires. They weren't hard, rocky material. It was some type of material that caught fire and caught things on fire. And it was an extremely odd event. So there was some fireballs in Chile. All right, here it is. Okay, so from astronomy.com, I'm going to share the link. Let's just go back and share the link, and we'll go through it. Pat Rabbit, yes. Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear. Fuzzy Wuzzy had no hair. One day I might not have any hair, but for my whole life I've had hair, so the poem doesn't work. Okay, astronomy.com. Planet 9 may be a black hole the size of a baseball. Found this to be new information that I'd never heard before. And considering that I've read so much information about the mysterious Planet 9 and the mysterious Planet X, Planet 10, and then our mysterious Planet X's and Planet 7X's, to hear that researchers are moving in a new direction to gather their thoughts, I thought, well, that's great. My view on understanding research is you have to have your eyes and ears open to any possibility. If you close your eyes and ears to any possibility, you have the potential of closing your ears and your eyes to the truth. A slew of oddly orbiting objects indicates a massive planet is hiding in the outer solar system, but one group of astronomers say it might be a tiny black hole instead. Now, currently there are 6 or 7 or 8 far-reaching objects that orbit around the sun in similar type paths and orbits. They're close, they're clustered, they're grouped together. They don't pass the sun at the same time, but all their orbits tend to be similar. But I tend to look at that in an odd way because there's so much material flying around us that how can you take these 6 objects? Because I know darn well that if you took all the objects that you could find 6 more that were moving in a different direction and you could pose the same question. That's my opinion. Something strange may be lurking in the outer solar system, and we've been saying that, and they've been saying that for a long time. The odd orbits of distant space rocks suggest there's a giant elusive world dubbed Planet 9 waiting out there to be discovered. But now, in a new research paper, a team of scientists suggests something far stranger may be influencing the orbits of these distant worlds. These astronomers say our solar system may be home to one of the earliest black holes in the universe, a primordial black hole. The Planet 9 hypothesis. Over the past few years, astronomers have uncovered about a dozen objects in the distant solar system that defy expectations. In addition to a few other odd attributes, this special subset of icy objects orbiting past Neptune, dubbed trans-Neptunian objects, or TNOs, all make their closest approaches to the sun at about the same spot in space. That's adding to a little information for me. Or TNOs all make their closest approaches to the sun at about the same spot in space. But some astronomers say that doesn't fit with the current theories about the solar system. Even at their closest, these so-called extreme TNOs, ETNOs, stay so far from our last known planet that Neptune can't be responsible for shaping their odd orbits. So, to account for the bizarre orbits, a team of astronomers recently invoked a wild yet increasingly convincing explanation for how they came to be, namely, a Goliath planet some 5 to 15 times the mass of Earth is hiding far beyond Pluto, hundreds of times farther from the sun than Earth. It's this giant world, Planet 9, proponents argue, that is shepherding the ETNOs into their unusual orbits. The black hole hypothesis. But according to new research posted September 24th on the preprint site ARXIV, Planet 9 isn't the only possible explanation for the ETNOs. The culprit, the new study claims, could be a primordial black hole instead. Primordial black holes are predicted to have popped into existence within the first few fractions of a second after the Big Bang. However, their existence has never been confirmed. If true, the proposed black hole likewise would be located hundreds of times farther from the sun than Earth, but because the black holes are incredibly adept at crushing down matter, a black hole equivalent to roughly 5 Earth masses would be only about the size of a baseball. The researchers say a strange set of gravitational anomalies recently identified by the Optical Gravitational Lensing Experiment, OGLE, may help explain why Planet 9 is actually a black hole. As part of the OGLE project, astronomers monitored the sky in search of gravitational microlensing events, which occur when a massive foreground object, such as a black hole, passes directly in front of a background object, such as a star. If the alignment of the object is perfect, the heavy foreground object acts as a sort of lens, distorting and amplifying the light from the object behind it. Based on 5 years of OGLE observations, researchers uncovered 6 strange microlensing events that seem to have occurred when objects roughly 0.5 to 20 times the mass of Earth acted as gravitational lenses. According to the paper, these objects, located about 26,000 light years away toward the Milky Way's galactic bulge, could just as easily correspond to an unexpected population of primordial black holes rather than free-floating planets. Quote, capture of a free-floating planet is a leading explanation for the origin of Planet 9, wrote the authors of the new study, and we show that the probability of capturing a primordial black hole instead is comparable. If such a black hole, rather than a rogue planet, were captured by the Sun and is now roaming the outer solar system, then it would influence the orbits of ETNOs in the exact same way as Planet 9. According to Konstantin Batygin, who has been instrumental to the Planet 9 hypothesis but was not involved in the new study, it's definitely possible that a primordial black hole could replace Planet 9 in their model, but that doesn't mean it should. Quote, the important thing to understand here is that all the calculations can tell is the mass of Planet 9, not its composition. Batygin told Astronomy, so in principle, Planet 9 can be a planet, a potato, a black hole, a hamburger, etc., as long as its orbital parameters are right. Though Batygin isn't entirely convinced a black hole roaming the outer solar system would be a more natural fit than Planet 9, he admits he's hesitant to write off the new theory completely. Or, as he put it, I always like to keep an open mind. Basically, primordial black holes, from what I read, and I'll just give you an overview of what I read, primordial black holes occurred right at the beginning of the expansion of the universe after the Big Bang. Even in that few seconds, few minutes of expansiveness, there were areas that were dense enough to collapse into small black holes because the area that was involved was small. You ended up with small black holes. Large black holes consume large amounts of matter in large amounts of time and space. These primordial black holes occurred at a point in time in our universe's lifespan that they were held back from growing. They were in an environment where the only product that you could produce is a primordial small type black hole. I find it very, 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 very interesting. We're going to have to keep our noses to the grindstone about this. We're going to have to pay attention if there's any that microlensing. We're going to have to research microlensing. We're going to have to research microlensing events. We're going to have to research where the events are occurring, how close are they getting. Now, science is supposed to do this. Science is supposed to reach and expand the envelope of thought. So to take me from Planet 9, a large gaseous giant, and a potential Planet X, something the size of Earth, and give me a new viewpoint, which is now a primordial baseball-sized black hole, isn't taking away from the knowledge, or isn't taking away from my ability to understand what's going on, because we have certain events that are occurring that we have to understand. We have to understand that those objects are following along in a path. They're coming to a point in their closest approach to the sun that are all similar. And most astronomers, astrophysicists, etc., believe that there is a cause and effect for that to be the result. And we're going to have to let them do the research, create the papers, find that information, bring it back to us, read it, learn it, report it, so that we know what's going on. Black holes seem like that would be a variable type object in our solar system. It doesn't seem like it would be, to me, as stable as a large Planet 9, but I don't know. We're going to have to research that. Would a primordial black hole be stable in its spot, or will it be growing, or will it be consuming? What would it do potentially for us? It is 8:53 p.m. here, Central Time in the United States of America. It is 9:53 p.m. in New York City. It is on October 6, 2019, the second anniversary for Collision Course on freedomslips.com, Studio A, 2019-2020. We expect to have some fabulous guests come on, keep us well informed about the space outside our atmosphere. If we have to talk about what's going on inside our atmosphere, we're going to do that too. In the hour that Ben was here with us, there is more to tell us. I know that there's a lot more, and if he's willing, I'm definitely going to make time and space available for him to come on freedomslips.com and tell us what we need to know about space weather and how it affects us. As far as incoming close approaches of objects, I've told you we have a lot of objects flying by October 8th and October 9th. Extraordinary number of objects discovered within the last 2 weeks. We don't know if there's anything not yet discovered on its way in. We'll have to keep our eyes open. Remember that this week we have 3 different meteor showers occurring on the 8th, the 9th, the 10th, and at the end of the week. If you're out at night and it's clear, look up, look to the east, look straight up, see what you can see, spend a few minutes, think about floating in outer space, because that, my friends, is probably a better place to be sometimes than here. I want to thank freedomslips.com for hosting Collision Course here on their airwaves, now on Studio A. I want to remind listeners that freedomslips.com is supported solely by its listeners. It's a champion of free speech. If you want to come to freedomslips.com, Revolution Radio, and find the station here, it would be good for you to help the station survive by donating, finding a resource page. There are seed packs, flash drives. If you want to survive, there's something on the resource page to help you do that in the event that you need to. But until that time, just keep coming back to the great shows, the great hosts, the great content on freedomslips.com, and you'll be sure to get your news updated daily, hourly, every time. Come here between 8 and 10 p.m. on Sunday, and you can hear Collision Course. Your host, Francis, is going to bring you space news, the news that he likes the most. If you join the chat room, you'll find links that I leave, maybe some links to the images that Cosmic Obsession Curval took. But for now, I'm going to say adieu, because this is the end. Y'all have a wonderful rest of your Sunday evening or your Monday morning. I'll see you next week. This is Francis. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.